Good evening. How y'all doing today? For those who are here and those who are on Zoom, today we're going to talk about the home buying process. So far it's kind of been a series of real estate classes. Last time we did it was trying to recognize a deal. How do you recognize a deal? How do you look at it? A cool, small, systematic way of being able to recognize deals. You know, a lot of times, as us as real estate investors, real estate buyers, first-time home buyers, we're trying to find out what's a really good deal. Because anybody tell you that a house is a good deal, but it's trying to have a system that's easy to follow, easy to do. That way, anybody can pretty much find a reasonable deal from a one single family unit home all the way up to a fourplex. You can use that system. And so this one is actually the home buying process. Why did we do this backwards? Because technically you first need to be able to figure out how to find a deal. And then from there, we can talk about the actual home buying process. And then after this, we'll actually go into more flipping, renting, Airbnb, all those different things, buying a business in real estate, all that. But today is going to be about the home buying process. Well, we did call it the first time home buyer process. However, it's just the home buying process in general. This same process will be done even if you're an investor. You might take some things out, put some things in, but for the most part, it's a bare bones situation of first time home buyers as well as investors. So to go ahead and get started, we'll go to this next slide. If you have any questions, let me let you know. You feel free, if you're on Zoom, to put them in the chat. If you're in here, just raise your hand. We'll definitely get a microphone to you. No question is too small, or we use the word stupid. That doesn't exist. Here to help you. So if you have a question, if you have a concern, ask it. Typically the way that we do seminars here, or the way that I do it with the finance, I do 45 minutes to an hour, and I'm talking and lecturing through the slides. After that, a Q&A session for another hour. So typically the sessions last 2 hours. So it doesn't have to last 2 hours. So, you know, when questions stop coming, that's when the Q&A session. But if it keeps going, we'll go all the way for at least 2 hours. So it's from 12 o'clock to about, well, we're going to start around, technically here around 12:10. So around 2:10, we're going to try to cut this off if possible. Again, you know, it's a guide, not a hard, concrete law. But if there's no concerns, if anybody has any questions on the process of us doing the seminar, if there's no questions or concerns, we're going to go ahead and get started. No questions? All right, let's go ahead and get started. So the first, I hope my clicker working here. Is my clicker working? Uh-oh, my clicker not working. What happened here? I had a clicker. If y'all don't mind, just click the next slide for me. I don't know, we're having technical difficulties starting off. That ain't good. All right, the first slide is actually going to say the home buying process. And so starting off with the home buying process, typically you need two things to really get started. You need to have a house and you need to have a lender. You can also have a real estate agent involved. We'll talk about those things, but key point, you definitely need a lender. And so we're going to go to the first slide. Next slide. Is getting qualified. So I want to go buy a house, even before I go to an agent, even before I actually, you know, go find that specific house. Let me be real specific here. I want to talk to a mortgage lender first. And when I talk to this mortgage lender, I want to get pre-qualified. The reason why I want to get pre-qualified is because before I go searching for too many houses, this happens a lot of times. People start looking at houses 275, 325, 350. If you're in the Northeast or Florida, I'm looking at houses that's 600,000. I'm looking at houses that's 400,000. And you start to fall in love with all these different type of houses. But then you come to find out that I only qualify for 150,000. Well, guess what? You've been looking at all these nice houses the whole entire time at this price range. So now anything in the 150,000 price range, you do not want it. You look at it, he's like, I don't want that. Now you feel discouraged about the home buying process. So the first thing to do is go to the lender, talk with the lender first, get pre-qualified. And then once I get pre-qualified, I know how much I actually can purchase, how much I can actually get. And then now I'm looking in the right price range. So if I qualify for 240, well, you can actually go about $20,000 higher, because the reason being, sometimes you can actually work the price a little bit lower, especially in today's market right now. We'll kind of talk about that maybe in the Q&A session. Somebody can bring it up. You know, how does the high interest rates affect the pricing right now? Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? How is closing costs and seller's concessions? Those type of words. If some of you older ones who purchase homes, as far as older investors and are people who've actually purchased homes just as a first-time home buyer, if y'all want to ask some questions for the other ones who don't know, feel free to do so. Yes, Brother Kobe. Yeah, the slides will be posted out at the end. You'll be able to put your emails in the chat, and all thing we ask is just fill out the survey, and we'll send you the slides as well. All right, so getting qualified, what do I need? So a lot of times you're going to talk to a mortgage lender, or you're going to talk to your loan officer. You're going to them, and the first thing people do is they just go there with nothing. And you go there and you say, I want to get qualified for a house. When that lender first meets you and you're just saying that, they typically don't take you serious because you haven't done your research, whether it's YouTube, Google, or you haven't talked to real estate agents. So they kind of just give you a list and kind of brush you off and move on. But if you go there with these items, 2 to 3 months bank statements, every lender is different. As of lately, the new qualification has been 2. It used to be 3 months, but you want 2 months bank statements. And what I mean by that is your bank statements, you want the bank statements that look the best. And what I mean by that is where you've been saving your money at. You don't want any NSF charges. You don't want nothing like that, because if they see any NSF charges, they're going to mark that account, and they're going to be like, well, you got to explain all those NSF charges. And if it's too many of them, even though you can have $10,000 in the bank, in their mind, you don't know how to manage money. So we don't want any NSFs in that bank account. You don't have to give them every bank account. People make this mistake. You got 10 bank accounts, you know what people do? They give them all 10 bank accounts. Don't do that. You give them the best bank account that you have, one that you can show where your money coming in and how your money coming out. And I mean by that is, for those who are waitresses, for those who do hair, for those who have a lot of cash business, if you have a lot of cash coming in and out of your account, you need to be able to tell where that cash is coming from. You need to be able to document that cash. If you do not have a cash job, you're a W-2 worker and you're getting a check, and you have cash coming in and out of your account, you're making these $500 deposits or $100 deposits, there's a loan, 2 loans specifically, FHA, and we're going to talk about those loans, and VA loans. If you have a lot of cash coming in your accounts, just let you know you're about to disqualify yourself. Because the reason being, they're going to make you mark every single one of those cash payments, where they came from and how they came. If you cannot prove them, you will be heartbroken when you went 8 weeks or 6 weeks into the buying process, and you a week or 2 from closing, and you can't close your home because you can't prove where these cash deposits come from. I've seen this too many times to count. I myself was almost lost a duplex behind this same situation. I had to prove where these cash deposits were coming from. So take time to make sure those bank statements, we say make sure they're clean. You're not doing anything illegal, but what I mean by that is no NSFs. If I have cash deposits in that account, be able to tell where those cash deposits are coming from and let it be a rightful source. You can't say, well, I lent this person money and they paying me back and I keep doing, you don't want to do all that. You want to keep everything clean. Again, you don't have to give all your bank accounts. Just make sure it's the one that you're saving, the one that you're showing where your money is going into. Does that make sense so far? All right, go ahead, Brother Kobe. We need to get y'all a mic. Yeah, we can start with that one. That sounds good. Hopefully it got batteries in it. I didn't check that.
So, question. So, with the cash, the cash, how are you
deposits?
Deposits. So, let's say for instance, I have a business,
yes,
but sometimes I'll get paid through Venmo, or sometimes I'll get handed cash from the, my clientele, or whatever.
Yeah.
So, you would need to show your receipts for that.
You have to show, like, okay, if my customer is paying me, you do workouts. If they're paying you $100 a session, you want to show, if they're doing a cash app at Vimeo, you're like, hey, make sure they put in there, or you respond back. This was $100 for such and such basketball session or basketball workouts. If I'm doing hair, when they doing the cash apps, try to put in their hair appointment, put something so that way, whenever the underwriter, we're going to talk about underwriters, they can be nightmarish. When an underwriter looks at it, they ought to be able to say, okay, this came from their business. This came from here. You want it clean, clear, and concise. You don't want to overdo it. but you need to identify, again, especially my cash people, waitresses, landscapers, business like yours, exercise, anything where you're dealing with a lot of cash, we need to be able to document where that cash is coming from. And also, just saying this, please talk to your accountants. When we do cash jobs, we don't claim everything. And so we have these low income tax statements. If you're trying to buy a house, you can't have a low 1040, a tax statement, a low AGI, adjusted gross income. You're gonna have to beef it up. And when I mean beef it up, I'm not telling you what to do, I'm not telling you how to do it, but you have to be realistic. I can't try to go qualify for, if you're in Houma, Louisiana, kind of your median price range for a house is between like 200 and 250. I can't go qualify for a house if I'm only making $24,000 a year. It's gonna be really hard as a single person. So you have to take that in consideration that before I'm going to buy a house, let me look at my taxes. This is for all my self-employed, independent contractors, waitresses, and those, of that sort. If I'm in this type of business, you're going to have to qualify something to be able to qualify for a house. So taxes are important. So talk with your tax specialist, your PA, and he'll get with you. But also, your last 2-year tax returns with W-2s, that's if you're a W-2 worker. But some people have 1099s. Some people are independent contractors if you sell cars or things of that nature. So they're going to need those 1099s too. Again, your last 2-year tax returns are really, really important. What they're really trying to see is how much money you made these last 24 years. I was also given, give out a little nugget here. Most of the time, if I remember correctly, they don't want you with over 45% debt to income ratio. So that's typically meaning your debt over your income. They don't want to see you typically over 45. If you want to be safe, you want to kind of stay under 40. And so what you do is you look at your gross income and you look at your debt. Put your debt over your gross income and you divide it up. Well, what they also do, I found this out recently. This is just a nugget that came across me lately, last year. Really, really big for me. The reason why they ask for the last 24 years is because they take your last 24 months, they take your 2-year tax returns, they combine it together, and then they divide it by 24. And then they see, are you 41% according to your debt? Now, I know I'm just saying a lot of numbers right now. We might be able to get a chance later to work an equation, but basically they take that number and they see how much money you're able to afford based upon a combination of the last 24 months. So it's really important that your income taxes reflect what you're trying to actually qualify for. I'm not trying to tell you how to do your taxes, but it's really important, especially for my self-employed people. So I don't want to keep losing everybody, but just feel free to ask questions later. The next one, credit score. Credit is very, very important. However, it won't kill you, but it can make life difficult. So in 2020, 2019, some of the clients that I actually work with are on Zoom right now, and some are present. You just needed a 620 score to be able to get rural development, to be able to get an FHA loan. As of recently, they pushed it up to 640. And from what I understand, they might push it up again to 650. They're making it harder and harder for buyers to qualify. Why? Is because they're trying to slow things down with inflation, and which makes it turn into what kind of market? Buyer's market. Because not many buyers can buy. So that means, not many buyers can qualify. That means not many buyers can buy. So sellers have a hard time trying to get off properties. And so right now, if you want to be safe, you really want to be around a 650. The reason why I put 620 to 640, because it varies according to the laws. However, there are certain programs, if you have a 580 credit score, I'm about to let you know ahead of time, though, it's going to be super, 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 super rough. If you have a 580 credit score, there are certain lenders that will lend to you, but you're going to have a higher interest rate, and it's going to be super hard to qualify. It might take you, typically to qualify, it takes about 45 days, maybe 60. If you're going through those programs, you might be looking at 60 to 90 days. And so can I endure hardness as a good soldier? How bad do I really want this house? And so it's going to be a lot of headaches. It's going to be, those programs, they get real invasive. They want to look at your income tax statements. Not only that, they want to look at your monthly bank statements. So you might first hand your first 2-month bank statements, but guess what? Through the process, they intentionally make it longer, because 2 months from the time that you give them that first two, guess what they want again? They want your bank statements again because I want to see your spending habits on a consistent basis. So you almost got to do double the work, double the time, and higher interest rate. But there are certain programs with 580. They're not friendly, but they do have some. But ideally, you want to be above a 640, above a 650. That's ideally where you want to be at. If you're above that, you're going to be able to get things like rural development. That's the famous ones that you hear about, zero down. FHA loans, typically you can do them above 620, but the higher you are, the better you are. Conventional loans, if you under 650, really honestly, it might be a waste of time if you're trying to get a lower interest rate because they really go based off your credit score. So does that make sense so far? Hope it's not too much information, but try to get you prepared. Let's go to the next slide. All right. This is also another thing. I have clients who've done this before. So I'm gonna use this example. They was driving taxis. They're driving taxis, and they've been driving taxis the last 5 or 6 years or whatever the case may be. And then all of a sudden they switch and say, you know what? I now want to go work at Walmart. What happened is you went from driving taxis and then now you went to customer service. When I do that and I'm trying to buy a house, they want to see you in the same industry or at the same job for the last 2 years. And also another thing that becomes a situation is if I was making just money off pure commission. If I'm using commission taxis, they don't get paid by the hour. You get paid by your ride. You're independent contractor, so you're just getting paid by as a self-employed person. You now going from something that was self-employed to now you're going to a W-2. So yeah, you might have made $60,000 here, but we're going to see if you're going to make the same thing at Walmart. So now what they want to do is they want to see you 2 years now in that industry. Does that make sense? So before I buy a house, I just had this conversation recently with someone else. They was about to switch jobs, but they want to buy a house right now. Well, before I go and switch this job, I need to first talk with my lender. But if it's switching to an entire different industry and with a entire different pay, it might not be worth me going to do that job just right now if a house is most important to me, because might want to go buy the house. And I've had clients do this. I've had it where they bought a house and literally 2 weeks after them buying a house, they went to start that new job. But it's all good once the ink is signed. But if I switch jobs in between, if I change industries in between, I can actually disqualify myself. And I've seen that happen before. They did job verification, found out the person switched jobs. They switched jobs. They went from a W-2, a consistent, check by check, and they went to actually a commission job. I think not selling cars, it was selling something else, but they went to a sales job. But when they did that, underwriter seen it, flagged it, took them another 2.5 years to buy a house. Again, you don't want to find these things out in the middle of the process. If I can also say this as well, once you start the process, once you hand them your paperwork, all your credit cards, stop using them. Don't use your credit cards. Don't go quick to pay off anything. The reason being is because you can mess yourself up. Just stay still and ask your lender, ask your officer, ask your real estate agent. Well, if you have a real estate agent, and if you do, we're gonna talk about real estate agents. We get paid, we get paid to sell. The reason why, when you use your credit card, they start seeing you add more and more credit, you add more to your debt to income ratio. And so in that process, it can shift that ratio. And I've seen this happen before where it actually knocked the person out. True example, I told a person, do not go buy a car. They needed another truck, but we was about to close on a deal. We have, at this point, it was a fourplex, beautiful fourplex. Everything, they was gonna live rent-free. Y'all know how I feel about the rent-free. It was a great situation. In this instance, he had a lender. Now, it wasn't one of the lenders I normally work with, and this lender had a son. His son was working the case all of a sudden. Well, the problem is his son had not been lending no more than 6 months, so he doesn't know any better. And they weren't keeping me abreast of everything. Well, my client decides, you know what? I've seen this truck that I really, really like. Now, mind you, his truck was not about to break down tomorrow. He sees a truck he really, really likes. Guess what he does, y'all? He goes buys the truck. He buys the truck. As soon as he buys the truck, he gets an email, a ding, because the underwriter, they have a program. Whenever you're buying something, whenever you get any credit, add new credit card, spend a credit card, it dings your, when I say ding, it emails or alerts your lender, your officer. It alerted him and alert the officer. Then I get alerted an hour later with he can no longer qualifies for the house. Mind you, me being a real estate agent, for all you who want to be real estate agents, my $6,000 check just went out the window. I got bills to pay, and I'm looking forward to this closing in a couple of weeks. The whole whole deal goes bad. He doesn't buy another property till a year and a half later, and he bought a duplex instead of a fourplex. He actually got a worse deal when it wasn't a bad deal, but it wasn't as good as the first deal. The first deal, he was golden. The next deal, it was just an average good deal, if I can say it that way. So again, some key takeaways. Watch how you spending those credit cards. As soon as you start, don't go buy another house. Buy a car, don't do this, don't do that, just stay still. And before you rush to pay off something, people do this. They're like, well, I want to go pay off this credit card, pay off that credit card, pay off this one. Even before you talk with a lender, first, go get qualified. The reason being, talk with your lender and see what you need to pay off for. Because your whole entire credit score works off an equation. I give an example. I'll tell on myself first. I was rebuilding my credit. This was a few years back and had some situations happen. So I'm paying things off. My credit score is jumping through the roof. Well, I decided to keep paying stuff off, right? So I paid off this and paid off that. I paid off one thing too many. And guess what my credit score did? It dropped 100 points. I almost cried. I was in the car, driving down the interstate, almost wrecked and cried because I did all this work and now my work went through the roof. One was 100, one was like 75, the other one was like 50 points. I'm calling everybody I know, every lender I'm calling, what's going on with it? They was like, you paid off too much. What happens is credit score is based off what? Active credit. So when you pay it off, guess what? You have no more credit. So now the equation changes. We don't have any debt to keep you occupied at the score that you was at. So it's important, don't let me have my own mind. Let me first go to a lender. And when you go to a lender, they can see what you qualify for. And if you don't qualify for much, don't be dismayed. We'll talk about that. And if they tell you, well, you got to do this and you'll qualify in 9 months to 12 months to a year or 2 years, whatever the case may be, that's okay. The reason why I send people to get qualified, even though they might not even have a chance, and I know they might not have a chance of getting qualified, is because we need to have a realistic plan. We can't keep trying to guess things out of the air. If you go to a mortgage lender, he says you need to do this, this, and this, and this. All right, now we got a real plan. Now we got a real vision. We're not dreaming. We know exactly what you got to do. We do these things. You get qualified, you buy a house. Versus us for 2 years, 3 years trying to guess, pay this off, do this or do that. Let's get a realistic plan. And if you have a real estate agent that can work with your lender, that's even better because they can come with a plan. It's okay if you don't qualify today. We just need to know, what do I need to do to get qualified? Does that make sense? If I want to get a good job and they tell me I need a bachelor's degree and I need in this particular subject, what do? We go do those things so we can qualify to get what? That job. And so if we go into the doctor for health, that they be like, you got to do such and such and such to get better, to cure this. What do? We go do such and such and such in hopes that we get cured. Do the same thing with housing. We got to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, just let you know ahead of time. You're most likely going to fail or you're going to stumble up. Sometimes you stumble up and get lucky and find something. But why not have a plan, have a direction, and you know where you're going, you know how you're getting there so you can get that goal. Because buying a house, it can be tedious your first time and it can be discouraging. So right here, the advantages of going to college. For all my people who went to college, just because you went to college doesn't make you better than the person that didn't went to college. That's not the case. I just want to show you the advantages. When you graduate, it used to solely be for doctors and nurses. Doctors and nurses, 6 months, you can buy a house. Some people, they'll even actually write you a loan even before the 6 months. You can buy a house. That's what it used to be. However, it has changed now. If you went to school and got your bachelor's, and even if you went to school and got your master's, when you come out of school, you go work your job, you can work your job literally the first week. If they can give you a qualification letter showing how much you make per hour, then guess what? They can use that now to qualify for a house. You don't have to wait 2 years anymore. So just because I went to college, it used to be you go to college for 4 years and I still got to wait 2 years like everybody else, unless I was in the medical field. But now it does not matter what field you're in. You just want to, show that, hey, I'm at this job, I'm making this type of money. But let me tell you, there's a downfall to this. If you work in a job that has commission. So if you're working a job, I'm gonna use enterprise. Many of my clients and brothers and friends have worked at enterprise. At enterprise, they will go by what you make per hour. They're not going to count your commissions. So whatever you make per hour, that's what they're going to qualify you for. So some people get disappointed because they're like, yo, I make, I make $70,000 a year or $60,000 a year, but that's with your commissions. Your base pay show that you only make $31,000 a year. So they're going to qualify you based upon what? That base pay. So just keep those things in mind. It's wonderful. So college won't count against you. You won't have to wait 2 years like everyone else. But just remember, they're only going by your base pay. No commissions, no even overtime. No overtime. You're like, I work 70 hours a week. That does not count in their eyes because you haven't proven that over 2 years. Does that make sense to everyone? All right, let's move on. All right, types of loans. You have the FHA loan, which we'll talk about, and I'm just going to say the loans first, which requires 3.5% down. The conventional loan, which requires 5%. There is one that does 3% now. And then there's Rural Development and Veterans Affairs, which is 0% down. So let's start with FHA. FHA is the most common one. So this is not at all a racist thing. This is just what happened. It's just facts. Most people of color did not have access to the FHA loan. The FHA loan was purposely created because originally when you bought a house, you had to pay 10 or 20% down. And most of the time it was definitely closer to 20%. That's what banks feel is a comfortable ratio. When we talk about more investment, we'll talk about the 80 to 20%. Well, I don't know about y'all, but not y'all, but you all. If you have, let's just take this, $100,000 house. In order to buy that house, that means you have to put down $20,000. Let me ask you a question. How many of y'all have $20,000 saved right now? I don't have it. I'm just putting my hand on. I'm just saying, how many of y'all have it? How many of y'all can save $20,000 within the next 2 years? How many of us can actually save $20,000 in the next 10 years? Just think about it. So that's how hard it was to buy a house. And so they created the FHA loan, so you only now have to put down 3.5%. Now, for me to buy a $100,000 house, I only got to put down $3,500. Does that make sense? Unfortunately, people of color, whether you're Black, Latino, Native American, or whatever that may be, we didn't have access to these loans. These loans was kind of taken away from us for literally, I don't think we started having access really to it about the 80s, and we really didn't know how to work until the 90s. So we're about 60, 70 years behind. And so we were trying to still save up 20% to buy a house. Now imagine if you're in New York City or wherever you may be, you're talking about having to put down $50,000 or $100,000. You can look at the wealth gap of how that was created. And so now I have to talk with a lot of my clients because my clients are typically from such demographics, because they're still trying to put down 10, 20, 30, 40% when you don't have to do that. Put down that 3.5% and then take the rest of your money, put it in your pocket, and then let's try to find you an investment property, and then you get some rental coming. Use that seed corn. So you can do as you please and put down 20, 30, 40% if you're in that position. I would highly advise against it, because the fact being, use the loans first that the government has provided. Like for instance, I'm gonna skip down to Veterans Affairs, the VA loans. If you're a person that has military background, either your grandfather or your grandmother, grandmother, dad, or whoever has access to VA loans that allow you to, or you yourself or military personnel that has access to a VA loan, you are blessed beyond measure, and you probably do not know what's in your hand. You can take that VA loan, and I'll just walk this down. The VA loan requires 0% down. It's 100% down financing. So if you get the seller to work with you on closing costs, you literally can buy a house with just an ID. But what does that mean? Remember I was telling you about the gentleman who was getting a fourplex that messed up with the car? Well, he was military personnel. He wasn't putting any money down for this fourplex. So he was buying a fourplex with 0% down. I got the seller to give him the closing costs. So he was just literally buying a fourplex with nothing. He just didn't have to buy a truck. Sorry, feel a little bitter on the inside. But he was VA. And so what we do is, typically people who are VA, we kind of advise them, first, use the FHA loan. And this is what he did. He bought a multifamily with a FHA. He bought a duplex. He used the FHA loan, and then he used the first-time homebuyer programs in the New Orleans area. They gave him $25,000 down as a second home mortgage, and he got a loan for the remaining amount. And he only had to put down 3.5%, I think, overall. And he got closing costs for that one too. I think he spent $5,000. Then after 2 years, him establishing himself as a landlord in a multifamily, guess what he did? He took his VA loan and he went and bought another multifamily house. And then where we at right now, he's free to now use the conventional loan, and he can still, well, he used to be able to buy a multifamily, but now he can buy a house. If you're a veteran, you can buy 2 multifamilies literally in 3.5 years or 3 years. You can buy 2 fourplexes, 2 duplexes, 2 triplexes, whatever you feel. You can do that and still go buy another home later and still only have to put down 5%. You can buy 3 homes. As for the rest of us, well, we can get you on step 1. Step 2, you're gonna have to pay the piper. You're gonna have to put down 20%, but we'll talk about that. So it's just, sorry, I must have clicked, I don't know why I clicked it. But technical team, it did it again. Y'all come back on down. There we go. Oh, here we go. But the VA loan, if you're military personnel, honestly, send me messages in the chat or give me my phone number. I'm not trying to be your agent or like that, but I just want to let you be informed. You really need to be informed. I'm not soft towards military personnel. It's nothing like that, but it's just you have access to so much, and most of the time, unfortunately, most military personnel of certain demographics do nothing with it because they don't know. And knowledge is the potential for power. And I'm trying to at least give you the knowledge. It's up to you to have the power. So feel free, send me a text, call, whatever, give my number. By all means, we can definitely talk. And if it's your grandfather, your father, I can show you how to help you, you can co-sign and y'all can make it work. But anyway, let's go back to rural development here. Rural development is another loan. Rural development, if you're in a city area, that's not going to work for you. Because the fact being, guess what it's called? Rural development. So you need to live in a rural area. You need to live in a country area. So places like Texas, no offense, it's still country in certain areas, Sister Jasmine. The outer edges, you can still do, rural development loans. Why you think Houston looks the way it looks? Like Sugarland, Pearland, all that stuff. Why you think it looks that way? Dallas, McKinley, Plano. Why does it look that way? Rural development. It works. Rural development is a beautiful, beautiful situation. I have a client in here that probably does not mind me saying about it. She's back there on the soundstage. She bought a house close to about $200,000. She went to the table. I got the seller to give the closing costs. She did a rural development loan. She went to the table with her ID. She had to even borrow a pen to sign the paperwork. And you're saying, well, what's the significance of it? First of all, she bought a house with just an ID. So it's showing you don't even need any money. You can buy a house without money. It's not the easiest thing to do. It's not the thing that happens the most, but it can happen. But she did that, right? She did that 3 years ago. When she bought the house, she had some equity in it, about $5,000 or whatever. Yeah, after the storm, it went up $60,000 on her. So by her buying a house without any money down and using her ID, she ended up making $65,000 off of it the day that she sells. It's just real estate. I know another brother in the New Orleans area, he used the FHA loan. He bought his house for $171. He used the FHA loan. Well, the city had first-time homebuyer programs, and FHA loans are really, really beautiful for this reason. FHA loans typically let you stack up with other first-time homebuyer programs. So he got $40,000 from the city in regards to call it second soft mortgage program. That's forgiven after 10 years. Lisa, you would know about that. He put that on top, and then he got another $15,000 from what they call a lift program that allows you, as long as you don't sell your house in 5 years, it's completely free. So he got $15,000 plus 40, brings you at $55,000, right? And then he got the remaining amount from the FHA loan. All right. 10 years later, he sold his house. I think he sold his house for $350,000. Think about how much money he made in that process. Do the math on that. Real estate is real. And then once you do something like that, you take that money, what we call it seed coin. It's like, okay, so how do I use this seed coin? How do I use this equity to buy more property? You don't necessarily have to wait 10 years. If you do those first-time home buyer programs, you will, because they put a lot of stipulations. A lot of people did a lot of crazy stuff in the early 2000s. Y'all heard of the 2008 recession. Y'all can figure out what happened. But if you use that equity, if you got to sit for 10 years, the money that you can make, what you can do, when you sell those properties, you have that cash flow, or you have that cash, that seed coin in there. You just use that seed coin to buy other properties, make other moves. And in other investors class, I tell you exactly what to do with that seed coin. How do you make that seed coin work? How do you buy something cash and then you mortgage it later? Go buy it cash, get your money back. Buy something else cash, get your money back. How do you take the cash flows and make them work? How do you buy even investment properties at 20%? How to use your equity to make sure you don't have to put a dollar down as you move forward? How do I use certificate deposits to keep my cash? We'll talk about those things in other investor classes. But anyway, just to go back, FHA loans, 3.5% down. Please use them. Conventional loans, 5%. They're not bad, but I typically tell people use FHA first and come back and use conventional, and then rural development and Veterans Affairs. If you're a veteran or in the military, by all means, you have a serious step up in life. Just don't know it. But let's go to the next slide. Any questions so far? I'm sorry if I'm taking up much time. But should I get a real estate agent? It depends. Me being a real estate agent, you would say that I would tell you by all means, get a real estate agent. It depends. It depends on who you're getting to be your agent. I'm not here. I'm a broker myself. I'm not here to be your agent. I'm not trying to do this. It's just unbiased information. But us as real estate agents, I'll be real. We got to get paid. We got to eat. I got to make a living. And so sometimes when we're selling, we're not trying to look out always for your best interest, unless, sometimes people think it's his family or something like that. But I got to get paid. I got to put food on the table for my family or whatever the case may be. So my objective is I'm trying to get you to a closing table. Does that make sense? So sometimes I'm not looking for the best deal for you. I'm just looking for you to get to the closing table. They tell you, oh, you qualify for $350,000. I'm trying to find you houses that's $370,000, $320,000, $340,000, whatever. I might not bring up to you about a multifamily. I might not bring up, look, you might not want to do this $350,000. I can see how much you're making. You might want to come a little bit lower. You might want to buy something with equity. It's going to take a longer time. It's going to take away from you. So having a great real estate agent, a good real estate agent at your side, that's wonderful, because you just got to remember this. Real estate agents, mortgage lenders, the title company, always remember this, and the insurance agent, remember this. They work for you. You do not work for them. I'm going to say this again. They work for you. You do not work for them. Their fiduciary responsibility, their loyalty, their fidelity is supposed to be to you, not the opposite way around. Now, with that also being said, they have the right to stop working for you and go work for somebody else if you don't have the right attitude. But at the end of the day, don't let no one push you around and say, well, you got to do this, or push you around and make you, don't let no one pressure you into doing this or doing that or doing this or doing that. There are advisors, there are counselors, they are there for your best interest. And so if you're getting a real estate agent, it depends. And in certain cases, you don't need a real estate agent. If you already familiar with the buying process, you have a few counselors or investors who can help you buy the house, then you're good to go. But do you need one? It just depends. But if you're going to get one, and just remember, they work for you. Get one that actually has your best heartbeat. Does that make sense? All right. So looking for a deal, this is just a 3 points of a deal, a system that I kind of created in regards of, from my experience and from the people I've been around, equity and cash flow and sellability. You always want to make sure, if possible, you want equity to be either created, existing, or potential growth. So if I'm buying a brand new house in a brand new area where they're building new houses at, typically when a person is buying a new house like that, they're looking for potential equity growth. They see other neighborhoods coming up. They're expecting, okay, if I buy the neighborhood number 1 here and they got 2 other phases coming, it's 260 now, but I see the end ones are at 340. I'm expecting mine to at least climb up to about 300. Does that make sense? Equity that's existing is if I find a distressed property. It don't necessarily have to be foreclosure. I know they preach this message all online, foreclosure, 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 foreclosure. Trust me, some of my best deals was never foreclosure. Some of my best deals have been, unfortunately, by people who was getting divorced, succession property, where kids just like, I just want to get rid of it. And sometimes it was just, hey, a person was just like, I need to get some cash real quick. It don't have to necessarily be foreclosure. So don't get in my mind, I got to go to the sheriff's sale. That's one good place. I don't have to go to, to this site. You can just look around for the best deal. So equity that's existing. The other one, sometimes you have to create equity. Sometimes, you're in a situation where you got a family of 5 and you need a house because you're tired of paying rent. Okay, wonderful. Buy that property, and instead of getting a 30-year loan, maybe you might want to get a 15-year, a 20-year loan, because you get more equity how fast you're paying that loan. So if I'm paying the loan off 30 years, let me let you know, you probably won't start getting equity until probably about year 15, year 16, year 17. I paid my duplex. I paid it for 10 years. I bought it for 121. It was a great deal. 121. And in 10 years, I paid it down to $96,000. And I was paying $1,000 a month. Now you do the math on that. That's 10 years. I ain't really knock it down far at all. I paid them almost the house already, but I didn't knock it down much at all. But I did a 30-year loan. I did it for a specific reason, trying to get the money out, the equity, and I need the cash flow. You got to do what you have to do in the beginning. But if you're in a situation where you're able to, you have a wonderful paying job, you're able to create equity, wonderful. There's a reason why we're talking about having that equity. That allows you later to be able to make investments, to make choices without having to use all your cash. The next one is cash flow. Cash flow itself is just, hey, what is my note versus the rent in my area, especially with the Airbnb situation we have now, the game, even though they're trying to put more restrictions on it, cash flow can be really, really important. And so my cash flow is if I need to move out of this house or I want to move and buy another house. If I'm paying an $800 note, is my rent that I'm going to collect and only going to be $900 a month? Well, I'm only making $100 a month. My cash flow might not be the best in this deal. But if I'm able to move out and my note is $800, I'm able to rent it at $1,500. Well, I got $700 worth of cash flow coming in. That's a really great situation. So just looking for the cash flow point. What is my mortgage and my insurance versus my potential income? Sellability. Sellability is how readily can I sell the property? Just remember, if it's in certain areas where you got cars beating up or you got hoarders across the street, you being able to sell that house as quickly as you want to might not be as feasible. The neighborhood itself has a bad reputation or things of that nature, you might not be able to sell it. Or if it has a good reputation, you can sell it much quicker. So that's the 3 points of how I recognize a deal. The investors I've been around and people that I've been around, I kind of created was equity, cash flow, sellability. Looking for those 3 points. If all 3 of those points are there, it's a good deal. It's just whether or not it's a good deal for you depends on your financial situation. And you don't have to have all 3 for it to be a good deal. However, all 3 there, it is. All right, making an offer. So we found a house. We talked to the mortgage lender. We found out what we qualify for. We have a real estate agent, just using this in this situation. We want to put an offer on a home. How do I put an offer in a home? All right. Real estate agents might tell you, you should put in this. Personally, and the other agents that I know, some of the good ones and ones that are way better than me, we all kind of got the same theory. We're not going to tell you how much to put in. First of all, whatever I tell you to put in, I'm liable for. If I told you to put $250,000 and you could have got it for $235,000, I'm the one who told you to go $15,000 higher than the price be. So, and if you don't get the property, I was the one that told you to go in at this number, but you missed it. You might want to put in $200,000, but I told you put in $192,000. But the person that was bidding in front, you put in for $197,000. You would have got the property if you went with your own mind. The thing about it is that you want to be in a situation where you're properly informed. You want to have the right information. So you want to have 3 comparables. So if you have an agent, now you want to use that agent. Hey, like agent, I'm liking this house. I want to put an offer in it, but do you have any comps in the area? Anything comparable to what things have sold in the last year? Now, it was sold in the last 5, but what has sold in the last year? Because appraisers, whenever they're doing appraisal work on our houses, when they're trying to appraise the value of our house, they use what happened in the last 360 days. They're going to take at least three comparables, comparable to that house, to come up with a value. So what they're going to do is they're going to see what houses sold for. They're going to look at house A. If house A sold for 120, they're going to look at how much square foot that house had. If it had 1,000 square foot, they're going to take that 120 and divide it by that 1,000 square feet living, not gross, living square feet. There's a difference. Gross square feet, that's including your patio, that's including your bricks, that's including all of that. That's not how we price houses. It go by your living square feet. So if it's that 120,000 divided by that 1,000, it's going to give you a price per square foot. I don't know what that would be. Would that be 120? I think that's 120, right? 120 per square feet would be the actual price of house A. Then they would do the same thing with house B and house C. Then they would take the price per square foot from each one of those houses. They're going to take a summation and get a summation of those price per square foot. And then you're able to take the house that you're looking at and see how much its living square foot is. And then you multiply that summation number that you got by that living square foot, and that'll give you a comparable price of where you want to be. So now you have information. You know how to get it. Once you ask your real estate agent, give me comps in the area. Give me at least 3. And then from there, if you got more, cool, but at least 3. You get those 3. Now you either divide it up yourself, or if your real estate agent is up to it, they might not. That's a little tedious work for them, so they might not do it. But you can sit down and do it, and then you can get an actual price of what the houses are selling for per square foot in the area. So you're not putting too much in, and you're not putting too less. Because once you know the price per square foot in the area, you might find a house that might be 20% or 30% undervalued. Now you got a chance to take advantage of that, because again, I'm telling you information that most first-time home buyers, or most home buyers in general, will not do. Now you have a competitive edge. Does that make sense? All right. So let's go to the next one. Earnest money deposit. Typically, if you're in Southeast Louisiana, and I think it's Louisiana in general, but at least Southeast Louisiana. So basically Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Lafayette, Houma, we kind of all follow the same rule here. We typically do 500 to 1,000 for residential. If it's a multi-family, like as far as like a fourplex, something like that, we might go up to about $2,500 or $2,000. If it's any bank repo or really serious investment properties, they're gonna at least require $1,000, typically. Typically, most banks, asset managers, they want at least $1,000, even if it's a single family home. And so that's what it is here in the Southeast corner. However, if you go next door to the state of Texas, and when you're in the state of Texas, they want at least 1% of the sales price. So if the sale price is $500,000, they want at least $5,000. That makes sense? So it's two different deposits. So if you want to be safe, 1 or 2% wherever state you're in. However, if you're in the Southeast corner, to give you real specific, if you're between 500 and 2,500, that's typically where you're going to be at most of the time. And so the purpose of an earnest money deposit is, if you back out of the contract, guess what I get a chance to do? I take the deposit, I'm gonna take it with me, and you go your way. In most cases, there are certain things in Louisiana contracts that they can take more than just your deposit. They can actually sue you, force you to buy the house, still take your deposit, and take 10% of the sales price. So be really, really careful. Honestly, in the last year, I had 2 events happen like that. One, I got my client out, and I almost got caught in the crossfire myself, but I was able to get him out. I learned something else about Louisiana contracts, how to get out of them. But the second time, I tried to warn my client, and they didn't take the warning. And after the inspection period, they decided, now they want to break the contract. Yeah, the seller called him out. The seller said, "You could break it. I want my 10%, which was about $30-something thousand on this one." He said, "I want my 30-something, well, I forgot the number, but I'm just use 33. I want $33,000. I want the deposit, and I want you to sign this waiver." He said, "If you have it on my desk by Friday, you can break it." So there, you have to remember, like, this earnest money deposit, that's wonderful, but there are other in the state of Louisiana. Now in Texas, they have their own as well, and in other states, you got to read those contracts. There are repercussions for breaking a contract if you don't break them out at the proper times. So in Louisiana and in most states, you can break them out. You can break out of a contract in these 3 manners: inspection period, which we're about to talk about next; the appraisal, which, it depends on how low that appraisal come back and if the seller's willing to take it; or the third one which is the least used one, but is how I got a client out of the last one: your financing. So whenever you're doing Louisiana contract, and as well as in different places, Texas or wherever, they have what kind of loan you're getting, how many years you're getting, and then what interest rate. Well, if your bank comes back with something that's not comparable to that, so if you said, "Look, I was basing it upon a 20-year loan," and they come back, "We'll only give you a 30-year loan at this interest rate," then guess what? Because your finances did not work out based upon the contract itself, it wasn't better or the same, now we can give you a deposit back. The agent's gonna hate you on the opposite side. They're gonna give you problems, but you can get out of it and get your deposit back. So, but earnest money deposit, make sure that you have it and know what you got to give. Inspection period. This is indeed the most critical period in buying a house. This is the time when you want to get out the house, get out. So, inspection period. Everybody got an uncle. They got an uncle the plumber, the cousin the carpenter. They got, the daddy that was a sheetrock finisher. That is all wonderful. You can allow them to go look at the house. But if I were you on my first house, guess what I would get? I would get a home inspector. Get a home inspector. Let him inspect the house. That's somebody who's professional. and guess somebody who liable. If he mess up, guess what you get a chance to do? Sue him. If your daddy mess up, guess what you get a chance to do? Hug him. Make sense? Family is wonderful, but family will hurt you. So get a home inspector. And if you're in a state like Louisiana, or you're in a state like Pennsylvania, you're in a state like Maryland, you're talking about these old states who got houses back from 1885, houses from 1935, 1945. Guess what they have? They got a thing called cast iron. And they got cast iron with your sewage lines. And so this is a problem. You get a home inspector, but the home inspector, most home inspectors, all they're gonna do is they're gonna inspect the house and everything above the slab. Make sense? But you need to have somebody, if that house got cast iron pipes, you need to have somebody to go check those sewer lines. Why? If a sewer line has a break in it, the least I've ever heard anybody pay who didn't know somebody was about $9,000. The worst I've heard somebody pay was about 30-something thousand. I've actually heard people buying a house, finding out the pipes was bust, and now they got a $15,000 bill. But guess what? They was already buying a house, FHA loan. They didn't have as much money to get, start off with. Now they got to pay $15,000, or your sewer, you got to smell that sewer, which some of us relate to. You're going to have to smell that sewer backing up inside of your tubs. Now it gets into your kitchen sink. Now that's in your kitchen. Now you smell, that's even unsanitary. So it's real important. Get a home inspector. But if you got those cast iron pipes, get somebody to check those, let them run a camera and see those pipes. Because if not, you're gonna have a bill. And let me let you know ahead of time, insurance agencies in Louisiana, I think Texas as well, and I'm not sure about the ones up north, but I do know this, do not cover broken sewer lines. They cover if it backs up into your house, but they don't cover the sewer line itself. And if they do cover the sewer lines, whatever insurance, there was an insurance agent I found that did do it, not in the state of Louisiana, at max they give you is $3,000. Again, the most you're looking at, the least I've ever heard was $9,000 without knowing somebody. With knowing somebody, the least I've ever heard was $6,000. Take off $3,000. So, I see a question. I believe that's Sister Chanel Short from Keller Williams. Go ahead, Sister Chanel Short from Keller Williams. She's probably at Keller Williams right now.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, my competition.
Hi, sir. I wanted to echo on that with the plumbing cast iron. We actually purchased our residential home, and we 5 years down the line, we had to break open sheetrock and get those cast iron pipes repaired, and it cost about $5,000 to $7,000. And thankfully, they hit a pipe to where they can tap onto it. It wasn't corroded. Then the second home that we purchased was a rental home, and we didn't get a plumbing inspection, and we had to end up breaking cement on the outside of the home and spending a few $1,000s as well, but it could have cost us about $10,000. Thankfully, we knew someone that was gracious enough to assist us. But yes, I wanted to touch base on that and just let you know that we went through it and don't want to go through it again. So we will be getting the next plumbing inspection.
Yes, ma'am. Honestly, for my investors, most of the time I tell them now, you plan for the worst, complete worst. And what I mean by that is it's not just the worst, what you can see with your eyes, but if I'm not getting that plumbing inspection, you put an extra $6,000 or $9,000 on top of that number. So that way, in case you do have that problem, you're covered. If you don't have that problem, well, you got money in your pocket. But that plumbing situation can be very serious. I had the most interesting one happen to me. I actually didn't plan for it. I had to take my own advice. And because I had somebody look at the sewer lines, and it's this house in particular, it's raised off the ground, so it didn't kill me per se. But just to tell you why you want to get inspected by somebody who gonna get under there or run a line. Yeah, this plumber, he walked around all the side of the house. And if you're looking under the house and you're looking from the side, all the pipes look fine. All the sewer lines look good. They're wonderful. And we was talking, another thing, please stop talking when you're doing a home inspection. Pay attention. Yeah, dummy number one here, take his own advice. So we talking, everybody know each other, I got some other people looking at stuff, whatever, okay. 7 months later. I never paid attention to when you run the water. I never paid attention to the sound I was hearing. So we was doing some testing, running the water. The person's house is right in here. We turned the water on, and all of a sudden, I'm hearing Niagara Falls outside. I'm like, why am I hearing water outside? I go outside, and it's loud. It's like, shh. I look under the house. Now, mind you, I'm way into this project at this point. I did not budget for this because I did a whole bunch of other stuff because I didn't think I had to do nothing. I look under the house. Every single sewer line, for the most part, was cracked. I had to go back under there, with the exception of the main line. I had to go back up there and run all type of new PVC because I didn't have the inspector come and look. He didn't go under there. This plumber inspector, he's more like somebody I knew, family friend. He only looked from the outside. He didn't go all the way under the house. If he would have went under the house and looked, he would have found out the pipes were all cracked in the inside. So if you went under the house and look, and you got on this side of the pipe on the inside, all of them were cracked on the seam. So water was just flowing out of all of them. So I ended up with a $5,000 bill that I didn't have to pay. Or at least I would have knew ahead of time. So just want to give y'all an example. There's another person on Zoom? Yeah, so they're learning lessons. Please learn from us. You don't want to pay those type of lessons. Be present for your home inspection. I have some clients, they want me to go. I'm cool. I don't use the word cool. I'm okay with it. But at least one person should go to look at it. If it's a couple, whoever's the most, most construction inclined, they need to definitely be there, especially if it's your first time buying a house. It's understandable to have a real estate agent go, and your real estate agent can have, the background and all that good stuff. That's wonderful. But you really need to be there because no one's going to care as much as you care for your house. Because the reason being, you're going to be living there. As a real estate agent, if I miss something, well, it's okay. I don't live here. And I'm gonna transfer it to the home inspector, where the home inspector supposed to tell you about it. And if you have, maybe an uncle going, he might care a little more, but at the end of the day, he don't live there. You're gonna live there. So make the sacrifice, make the time, go to the home inspections, be there, talk with them, learn about your house, learn what's going on, learn what year your house is built in. That's important. If your house is built in 1945, you got to understand that most of the wood that you're going to find for your house is super expensive. You can't even rebuild your house at the same exact price. That's non-existent. So how am I going to do repairs, or what's going to go on? That's all important. Just remember those things. All right. And then this is the other thing. If you have repairs that's needed, don't fret. Negotiate. Ask the seller, hey, are you willing to fix this or fix that or fix this? Or if not, can you take off the price? Let's negotiate, because that's another negotiation tool. Once we see the repairs, sometimes the price might start off at $200,000, but by the time you're in the deal, this has happened before, we might be down to 160 because you had sewer lines, you had electrical problems, you had this, you had that. And the older the home, the more issues. Let me just bring this out. If the house has fuses on it, it got to be changed. Thank you, Brother Feld. Because insurance won't insure. So off the bat, guess what I'm going to tell the seller? Hey, you got to change this because I ain't paying for it. You're going to have to pay for it anyway if you want to sell the house. Or if not, you're going to have to take off the price. Either way, cut go, you're going to have to do something about it. And so as a buyer, you want to know those things because you don't want to be like, oh, I'll take the house, I'll fix it. Why? He know he got to take off for it. Make him take off for it. All right, so let's keep on going here. All right. The next part is the appraiser. If they're sending an appraiser out, congratulations. Typically, 75% of the time, that means that you're actually qualified for the home and they want to give you the home. So from this point, as long as you don't do, I don't want to say stupid, crazy, somebody bought a car, I'll say it a little bitter. As long as you don't do crazy, you should be okay. The appraiser, you're going to pay for the appraisal. Now, if you're a VA loan or something like that, they'll include it in there, but for the most part, FHA, you will pay for the appraisal. And for the appraisal is another time that you're able to get out. And so I've had a situation where I was arguing with the agent one time, not arguing, having a discussion. The house was $250,000. It was a duplex in New Orleans, in Gentilly. I remember specifically. I was like, there's no way it's worth 250,000 at this time. Now that same one is worth about 375. But at this time, yeah, my client came up. At this time, there was nothing over 250,000. This is back in 2017, Sister Lisa, you would know about that era. I'm looking at the comps. I give my comps to my client. We all coming to the same conclusion, at max 225, at max, if you're lucky. That's what it's gonna be. So I say, hey, it's between 215, 225. My broker was like, I think 210. Okay, cool. Well, they did the appraisal, and the listing agent said, I know for a fact, I pulled my comps, I did this and did that. She never did email me the comps, but hey, guess what the appraiser said? 225. So now we went back. Hey, it's 225. This is what it says. And so the seller, I guess, went pray for 3 days or something. I don't know what it did. They didn't give us a response. And but he came back. He had to let it at 225. So my client ended up getting $25,000 off the price because it didn't appraise for that. Do not. I know people do it. I know you're in different states. I understand, Brother Caleb, you won't be able to get the house this way and da-da-da-da-da. I understand you're in a hot market like Florida or Maryland when everything's is going wonderful. I understand. But me personally, and what I advise clients, do not pay for a house. Don't pay more for the house than what it appraised for. Don't be like, okay, the house 225, I'll give you another 10 grand on top. You know the reason why? When people start to do that, and each person do that, guess what happens? A bubble is created. And so the real price of the market is not really there. And so now when you get a situation like we're in now, when interest rates begin to go so high and trying to stop people from buying, or you get a real recession, which we're in right now, or going to at least, when you get into that scenario, guess what happens? That pendulum, it's going to swing back. It's going to correct itself. So you might have went, by the time you're, if you're buyer number 6, you didn't really push that thing up. You might be $50,000 overpriced. And when the market correct, guess what ended up happening? You used to have equity. Now you might be negative equity. A lot of people in Florida had a client. She had a condo in Florida. She bought it right in 2005. She ended up after the recession being 100,000 plus overpriced. It took her till 2017 to be able to get to a point where she was able to break even. When I mean break even, only be at $5,000, $6,000 short. So just remember those things. I wouldn't advise buying a house that's over appraisal price. If it's over appraisal price, I'll give you appraisal. I'll give you what the bank will give you. Anything else, that's on you. Because if not, you help them with the bubble. However, if you're the seller, God bless you. You are in a great situation. All right. We need to talk about what's closing costs. So every house, you have a down payment and you have a closing cost. Closing costs is the cost of being able to close a loan. But even in closing costs, it has two things that's divided. So closing costs, you have things like administrative fee, loan fee, financing fees, those things. But they have another thing called prepaids. And so when you buy a house, you have to pay your insurances and your taxes up front. And so as a buyer, when you're negotiating your contract, you know what you want to ask the seller for? Try to ask them for closing costs, but also use the word closing costs and prepaids. So that way, if the seller gives you $7,000, because they're going to put on your contract, some people be like, the seller will give buyer up to $7,000. And then sometimes they'll say the seller will give the buyer $7,000. You're saying, well, Brother Caleb, what's the difference? If the seller says, I'm going to give you $7,000, that means guess what I'm going to give you? $7,000. But if the seller says, I will give you up to $7,000, it means wherever your costs stop for closing costs, if you just put for closing costs, so closing costs only $3,500, guess what I'm gonna give you? Just $3,500. So you wanna put these words, seller will give buyer closing costs and prepaids. If you wanna buy down your interest rate, they'll take the remaining money from your closing costs and they'll use it for your interest rate. They can use it for whatever they wanna do. However, you have to let them know specifically, use words closing costs and prepaids, because everybody uses the general word closing costs. But closing costs itself is just more of a general word. You have to be specific on a contract, and no, closing costs is cost of closing a loan. Prepaids is your insurance, your taxes. And if you also want to go ahead as a sidebar, It's not necessarily a prepay, but buy your interest rate down, which a lot of people are doing now. So know what closing costs are. They're not the same. Typically, the running closing costs used to be 3.5% of the sales price. Right now, because of inflation, I think right now I've been kind of getting a general number about 5% of the sales price of the house. So you want to kind of budget for that. If so basically if the house is $100,000, you want to have 5,000 plus your down payment. If you're using FHA, 3,500, that's $8,500 out of your pocket that you want to kind of budget for. You have to know what you're getting yourself into. This right here is really, really small for all of us who are in here in person, but this is a mock-up. Y'all definitely want to kind of look at it. This was a house back in 2020. I wish I could zoom it in for y'all. I'll kind of just give y'all some of the numbers. This was back in 2020. And so now in 2020, that's when interest rates was 2.8. So this house right here, interest rate is 2.8. But just to show you, if you kind of look down over here on well, you won't be able to really see it. It's on the right side. I wish I could blow it up for y'all. That's in person. But it has a breakdown of closing costs. So it has in that middle, the second middle column over there, the middle column, not second, middle column. It has estimated closing costs, $5,100, and it has estimated prepaid items. So it's showing you how they divide up the two. But then it also has your down payment in there as well. And so it's just understanding how they divide it up, because as a buyer, you want the seller to help you out on closing costs and prepays as much as possible. Because the more they help pay out, the more you keep in your pocket. The more you keep in pocket, the more that you can use to go buy something else. Does that make sense? So try to get them to work with it. Sorry for you all that's in here. I wish I could blow it up. Unfortunately, I can't. Can you zoom in on it? I know they probably want to see some of the numbers. But yeah, and then over here to the right, this person was putting a lot of money down. You have cash required. That's what you got to bring to the table to close this deal. He or she was doing something pretty expensive there. Again, I would recommend use that FHA. Oh, you don't have to worry about it. We got to zoom that bad. You don't worry about it. We'll get it next time. Y'all want to get a printout of it? Okay, we'll get a printout. Huh? Yeah, I'll send a PowerPoint. Yeah, I don't want to make you have to go through that. Thank you for our Sister Tiff. All right, title work. There's another important part of a deal. This could really mess a deal up. Do not buy a property without doing a title search. The reason that's important is because you might end up buying a house that you don't even own. A lot of times people, and I'm actually going to skip down as a third bulletin. It says family is good, but will hurt you. I have seen too many bad deals between family members. And what I mean by that is, this is my cousin. I trust my cousin. My cousin would never do me no harm. And it's not they did it intentionally, but your cousin could have hit somebody in the back of a car, had a lawsuit against them, and never told you about it. And now they have a lien against the house, and they don't even know they have a lien against the house. But you all go by it, and instead of you doing a title search to search the property, make sure there's no liens on the property. And what I mean by liens is that means that nobody owed money besides the lender. When plumbers are not paid correctly, guess what they do? They put a lien against the house, called mechanic lien. Or carpenters, they put a mechanic's lien. It's not a mechanic with your car, but they call it mechanic's lien. I don't know why, but that's what they call it. You can have a lawsuit, or you could have had so many first mortgages, second mortgages, third mortgages on the house. And the more people involved with it, I'll give you an example in a few, the more problematic it can be. And a lot of times between family, because this is cousin, I won't do a title search. Me personally, some investors do not do it all the time. I don't think I'm ever going to buy a property without a title search. I'm saying this by the grace of God. Reason being, I need to know what I can't see. And I also need to know what you don't know and what you can't see. Because sometimes you get stuff pinned to you that you can have identity theft. And until you work out that identity theft and you have these credit cards and these lenders, they tagging it to your name, and then they put it on whatever liens, whatever assets you own. You might not even know nothing about it. But guess what? When I buy that property, I now inherit it. There's a guy down in La Rose. He bought a property for $50,000. And this was from a friend. He didn't do a title search. Come to find out, he can never build on it. He can never rent on it, because it has so many different liens, not just from the person he bought it from, but the person he bought it from never had a title search either. It's down to buy you. and they had so many liens, I don't know, like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if he was to build anything on it, they would be able to take it. If he takes any rent, they was entitled to it. So he got $50,000 of expensive grass. Yes, sir. Mhm. Oh, he want to ask you a question. He want to put it on. I forgot. Mike. Yeah. Is the mic on, brother? Yeah, put that. There you go. I hear it. It just came on. I thought I heard it.
Okay, I got a question.
Uh-huh.
How was he still able, that person, the seller was able to sell that property with it still being, that number was so high and significant, with it being $100,000 without the person, the seller, the first buyer and the seller and the second buyer? How was he able to do that by law and no one was able to catch that?
Because they didn't go through a title search. They didn't deal with a closing attorney. They did it between themselves. So what they did was, you can go to a title company and be like, I don't want a title search. Or you can go to an attorney and be like, I don't want it. You don't need to search the title. Just transfer it. And when they just transferred, no one went back to check if you had liens. And so what ended up happening is you end up inheriting the liens. It's very, very common. And so the most important thing to do is, I advise two things: title search. And unfortunately, even title companies mess up. Yeah, I've actually had that happen. That's why we get a thing called title insurance. So when the title companies mess up, because I want to transfer liability, when that title company mess up, guess what? I got title insurance. Y'all got to fix it. Because if you don't fix it, I'm still going to get paid. They're going to either give me the money for the property or give me money for the problem. I'm going to be okay. But y'all ain't going to be okay. Y'all going to have some problems on your hand. So go ahead, ask away.
Another question, while you bringing that up. So on the title search and the title insurance, would you recommend that we get title insurance for every property that you're investing in?
I do. I recommend it, and to all my investors, I do. Do everybody listen? No, I do. Because I've seen too many pitfalls. I've seen title companies mess up, and I've also known that people tell me like, well, I don't have any liens on the property. And then I found out we got, I'm gonna break out a store in a few. Y'all got 5 or 6 liens on there. Your cousin got one, your grandma got one, you got this property succession. And I've also had it where families have tried to sell properties and they was mad at 2 family members and didn't tell them they were selling the property. And then they tried to sell it from under them. And then we did a title search and found out they had 2 extra owners on there. And then that became a whole battle family ordeal. So the most important thing I would recommend to all, and everybody don't listen, I don't care what state you're in, I would get title insurance and I would get a title search, regardless of who it is. That's my recommendation. Because that case, you're safe. You transfer liability to the title company and you search the title, you did all your due diligence, so you did the best that you could. So that way, your investment is not burned, because we put a lot of money into our lives. I mean, so our money into these projects. This is our lifestyle, our livelihood, our seed corn. I would protect it at I would protect it by all means possible.
And who catches that mistake if the title company doesn't catch it? And what's the leniency as far as in accountability towards the title company not catching it versus it being a hiccup on your end by you being an investor and you buying it?
It won't be a hiccup on your end, because the fact being, when you got the title company to search it, they gave you an abstract saying, we checked the clerk of courts, we went here, we looked, we did all this, and from what we seen from our expert opinion, there's nothing wrong with this title. It's clear. When you told me the title was clear, your professional diagnosis was it was clear. So when I got title insurance, I'm ensuring your opinion is correct. When your opinion is off, then you have to pay for it. And what ends up happening typically is another buyer come up, or not buyer, another inheritor, somebody who either inherited the property. Typically, they don't really miss. I've only seen them once miss like a bank loan, like a mortgage. It's very rare. But typically, it's an inheritor. Some great grandson that did his research and found out that I own part of this property, because that does happen. And so now you have a chance to be able to fight against that. But it's the insurance company, as long as I get title insurance, because I have seen people do this where they did not get title insurance. So they got a title search, but they didn't get title insurance. And because what people think is we use a lot of words together. Like I brought up the word closing costs. When we think closing costs, most people don't think that closing costs and prepaids are not the same thing. Does that make sense? Because we use the general word closing costs. And when we use title work, everybody thinking in mind that, when I did a title search, I'm safe. No, you did a title search, but you need title insurance. Does that make sense? It's the same way when we buy cars. The reason why when we buy cars, we try to take VIN numbers and give VIN numbers ran is because we're trying to see if this was a salvage title. Because once it comes up as a salvage title, I can buy it, but just know that my value is significantly reduced. I won't get the market value that I really would because it's a salvage title, whether it was flooded or whatever the case may be. Sister Jazz.
I have a quick question about that. So if you're at the point of doing a title search and your title insurance, I know you mentioned those 3 points when you can back out of a deal. Is that too late to back out of a deal because, say, the title is messed up, or do they just have to get it fixed? Or are you just at the point where you know it, but you still got to buy it because it's too late in the contract?
I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. There is a fourth way to get out of a contract. Yes. This one here was a hard lesson for me because at the end of Louisiana contracts, there are in other ones as well, Texas, they call it merchantable title. It means one that you're able to sell or transfer. And in it, they have a section. If they're not able to give you a merchantable title or clear title within 10, 20, 30 days, some arbitrary number that you want to put after the closing date, then you're free to walk away from the deal. If you're a real estate agent, I guess I'm giving some advice. I'm raising up competition. I don't want to raise up competition. I got Keller Williams on the line right now. You're trying not to do more than 10 days because I got a situation where I had a client. I'm gonna give this story. As I was telling the gentleman, they had a family and the family was kind of divided. The brothers and the sisters, and they had kids and everything. You know, it was the dads. The dads ended up passing down to the brothers and sisters. But the dad had 2 other kids that was outside that had kids as well. But as y'all can imagine, they didn't get along. And the kids that was outside had kids. Unfortunately, both of those kids had mental disorders. And so they had legal guardians. Because they had some animosity towards those, when they were selling the property, guess what they did? They tried to sell it without letting them know. We do a title search. We do a title search, and it pings 2 other inheritors. Not only that, the inheritors had kids. And we like, hey, what's going on? I thought y'all had, because at this point, it's like 6 of them. And so it's already a frustrating thing. When you're dealing with succession properties, when it's more than 2, it's a headache. So now we still want to buy the property, but we don't have a clear title. The agent was trying to force me to buy it, trying to force my client to buy it, and I'm like, no, because basically, like in Southeast Corner, it's kind of like an unspoken rule. If the title is bad, guess what? Oh, well, it is what it is. Next time, we'll go our way, give us deposit, we'll see you later, right? That's the normality. This agent, I guess, was fooling themselves and maybe tired of the client, you know, advised them to force us to buy it. Because when I say force us to buy, at least force us to wait, because we had 30 days in the contract. In that little area where it says you got 30 days, well, I put 30 days, I shouldn't have. You have to wait until that 30 days is up to get your deposit back. You don't want to do that because your client want to move on to another deal, want to do whatever, but now if they do clear up the title work, your client now is in a situation where I still got to buy this property. Does that make sense? And so they can't walk away without getting a lawsuit. So I learned the lesson on that. So I don't do no more than 10 days. But in that situation, just to show you what ended up happening, the legal guardians knew the whole story. So guess what they were trying to do? I think they ended up working it out with them too. They forced them to give them money. And at first they forced them to hold the sale and y'all pay us up first. So now we got to wait till they finish arguing to see what's going to happen. And hopefully they do this, you know, according to the clock. And they ended up having to settle with them, and they still had to spend money to clear up the title. And it ended up being a very, very bad storm. So that's one. And then I had another one where the mother was selling, and people got to be careful of this. The mother was doing an owner finance to a couple. She owner financed it to a couple. The couple defaulted on the loan. Well, when the couple owned the property, when it transferred over, they owed some money because they was in a lawsuit. So a lien got put on the house. The mom died, passes down to the kids. Two of the kids, it's like about another 5 of them. Two of the kids had loans for Bank of America. One was $80,000. The other one was like about another 100 and something $1,000. And then the other ones had gotten into some car wrecks and had some lawsuits on them as well. By the time we finished, it was like $283,000 in the price. We was buying a house for 65. It took them 2.5 years to clear up the title. We still ended up buying the property 2.5 years later, but it took them 2.5 years to clear up the title. So just letting y'all know, family is good, but it will hurt you. But not only that, friends and whoever, regardless of the situation, you should do a title search. And not only that, get title insurance. The purpose of the title is to make sure that there's no liens on the property, because if you buy that property with liens on it, just know this, you inherited those liens. You'd be like, well, I don't owe Bank of America. Now you do. Now Bank of America is going to force you to pay it, because anything you build upon that property is theirs. Any cash flow that you really do, and that can be fought, but even that cash flow is subject to them. At least they open to a portion of it, because they're now owners in the property. Does that make sense? So please, by all means, do a title search and get title insurance. It's worth it. If you're an investor, first-time home buyer, protect your investment. Don't just do things off emotions. So after that good long session, sorry for talking so much, but if you have any questions about what we talked about, we're gonna start with those first. Any questions along those lines about the home buyer process, going through it, if you put some in the chat, I don't know if you did or not. Tiffany told me there was none, but if you have any questions or any comments, feel free to ask away. We'll kind of first start off with the home buyer process, and if y'all have any other questions, maybe towards investment property, I know some of y'all do, I'll try to answer those. We'll try to keep this to about 45 minutes, about 2:10 will be the cutoff mark. If you have any questions, but if you don't, we'll just let out early, but ask away. Feel free, please ask away. That's the purpose of it.
Okay, I have another question. So I was trying to wait, so
Go ahead.
we go back, but it's about the debt to income ratio.
Yes.
How does that work with student loans? Because I've read stuff online where I know credit cards, cars, etc., but I've seen different things where sometimes they don't count towards your debt, or they do. I don't know. I've seen different things online, so I'm just curious.
Okay. Student debt is so confusing because they changed the laws so much. With conventional, I think they were pushing, they wanted you to amortize it. They didn't want you having it, with like Mocello or whoever the current lenders are. They wanted you to take all your loans, put them all into one loan, have one payment. Because if not, what they would do is they would take all your loans, combine it together, and then they would give if you had $50,000, they would take 1% of your loan and apply it to your payment. So now you got an extra $500 that they add to your debt, which hurts some people. And so right now, I haven't had anybody with FHA. With student loan debt. I don't know exactly what they're doing. FHA was not counting it as long as it was deferred. Conventional was doing the 1% unless you amortize it. So I don't know exactly where they are right now, besides this is old information. When I say old, this was early last year. And I'm saying that for a reason. Stuff changes every 6 months. One point we're doing this, next one we're doing that. So that's what I know last. But what I will do, Sister Jazz, I will get a confirmation on it. On Monday, I'll talk with one of the lenders. But that's old information. In the banking industry, 6 months or a year, you can be really out of date. Hope that answers your question. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So my question goes back to appraisals. So once you get an appraisal, how far under, or do you want to buy that house at appraisal, or you want to buy it under appraisal? Or I know for sure you mentioned about not buying it over appraisal.
Never buy it over.
So what's your opinion on that?
Well, once you're in the process, once you're there, and we're talking about the home buyer process, and I'll bring up another process you can do with appraisals. But once you're there, we're at the end of the process, basically in the middle of the process. So whatever price you agreed on the sales price, that's the price that you agreed at. So let's just say we agreed at 130. We agreed at 130,000. When the appraisal comes back, 5 weeks later, the house appraises for $160,000. Wonderful. You buy the house at $130,000 because what do we agree upon? $130,000. As long as it's equal to or better than, we okay. It's when it's less than, then we have a problem. And so, and now we shaking hands at 130, purchase agreement at 130, appraiser come back later and it's now 100,000. Guess what I need you to do? I need you to come down $30,000 because the bank not going to finance me the money. I do have the option to give you $30,000, but we don't want to do that. So we're going to stick right here at $100,000. I need you to come down. If you don't come down, well, it's wonderful, it's fine. Give me my EMD, my earnest money deposit. I go my way, you go your way. God bless. That's where we want to leave it at. Now, let me say this one statement before I get to the other process. Say you're buying it from a family friend. Again, family friend or friends. Sorry, family friend or family. Family is good, but family will hurt you. I seen this. I was advising on the deal. I never forget this. I told them specifically, when you get this appraisal, as long as it is better or the same, wonderful. That's all you say. It met the appraisal. That's all you need to say. That's not lying. That's just a legit word that we all say. It met the appraisal. No agent tells another agent this is what it appraised for. Until way after the deal, man, it appraised for this. Like, that's about it. She decides to tell this family friend how much it appraised for. So they were selling it for $190. It appraises for $230,000. This family friend had already given the closing costs and did this and that. Well, like I thought, a week later, this family friend fussing and cussing, well, you need this, you need that, da 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 da. I can't be doing this. I'm giving you the house, da 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 da. The house went from 190 and it's under contract. Guess what they pushed it up to? 205. I think 205 is what they pushed it up to. So she went up $15,000. If she would have never knew how much the house appraised for, no one would have had a problem. And so when you get an appraisal, it's wonderful to go tell everybody. Tell everybody. Just don't tell the seller and don't tell the seller agent. I'm just telling you. And it's nothing personal. It's across the board. We just don't do that. So please, again, family is wonderful. Friends are wonderful. Friends, how many of us have them? However, they will hurt you. So the other way you can do this deal, and this is what I do between friends and family or people who are in agreement, to keep everything honest. Yeah, you'll have to pay for appraisal twice, but this is how we start off. If, let's just say, my brother, what's your name? Derek? All right, Derek, Caleb, man, nice to meet you, my brother. So let's just say Derek got a property. He's buying it from Felton. And so Derek, like, I'll buy the property from you at appraisal price, or I'll buy it 10% under the appraisal price, something along those lines. He might not even say appraisal price, whatever price y'all come up with. He might, but we're trying to find a price. Well, what we'll do is we'll say, hey, let's get an appraisal. And you can already work, 10% down, 15, whatever is comfortable. All right. What we do is we first go get an appraisal. Y'all split the appraisal, pay $275, $300, $300 a piece. Get an appraisal. Now we got a hard number right in front of us. This is an appraisal from a professional opinion, unbiased to all of us. This the number. We're going to negotiate from here. And so now we keep everything fair. And so now it's no surprises, no nothingness. Everything is clean, it's open, hands on the desk, palms up type ordeal. Anytime I see family, friends, associates buying from each other, and they want me to be involved, I said the only way I'm gonna be involved is this way, because I find this way to be the most honest, where nobody getting played, nobody feels cheated. At that point, it's fair negotiation. If I know the house is worth $130,000, Brother Derek Brother Felt, if y'all know it's $130,000, if y'all want to negotiate and you win in negotiations, you get it down to $100,000, well, congrats to you. But it was fair. You knew how much it was worth. You knew how much it was worth. Everything is clean. Everything is honest. Everything is on top. And it's fair to everyone. Let the best negotiator win, not the best deceiver. So you can do things from a different route. You're still gonna have to get an appraisal anyway, though, because when you're doing the home buyer process, if you're getting anything financed, the bank gonna be like, yeah, it's good, you got an appraisal. Well, we don't trust your appraisal. The reason being because, and this is why, before the 2008 recession, sellers would hire their own appraisers, and buyers, people who was refinanced, would hire their own appraisals. Well, guess what happened? When I hired that appraisal, guess who his fiduciary responsibility to or his loyalty to? who paying me? And so you might tell me, look, I might tell the appraiser, look, I want this thing to be, I know it's worth 160, but I need you to put this thing up to $200,000 because I'm trying to take out 150 grand. Well, guess what they did? Put that thing for $200,000. You bring it to the bank see it's an appraiser, it's stamped by an appraiser, this and that, no fuss, no foul. All right, cool, let's lend them that money. And so before 2008, that was a really big thing. Everybody was hiring their own appraisers. Even real estate agents, they had their own appraisers. That because I want you to put it at the price that I want it to be. So now you don't have that anymore, and all banks are going to require you to get an appraisal, typically, when you're doing a deal. But if you want to be fair between family, fair between friends, fair between associates that know each other, if you being a person that's a middleman, even if you're a real estate agent, again, I'm telling clues, be honest with each other. Be like, man, you split the appraisal, the buyer split the appraisal, the seller split the appraisal, and let's just be upfront and let's negotiate with the right price in front of us. That sound fair? That sound fair, Brother Jerry? Yeah. I see Zoom up. Somebody got a question? Brother Elton Fletcher, the home inspector himself. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I sent the question in. What happens? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir. You
Okay. What happens when you've been duped by the appraisal? After all the analogy of what you explained earlier, and with the selling prices for homes in the community, and it comes way under what your assessment is. What's your option there?
I'm really sensitive about that topic right now, Brother Elton, because I'm going through that right now, matter of fact. Oh, whew, a little sensitive. That hit me right there. So we're going to talk a little bit from the investment side on this one. Whenever the price comes back like that, you can force a second appraisal. And so as a seller, you can be like, I don't want this appraisal. I know this not right. So you can either bring your own appraisal to there, and it'll force what they call a referee situation, or some people call it third party, but they'll get another appraiser out there to do another opinion. The only problem about fighting it, you can drag it out for a while, and guess what you can end up losing? You can end up losing your buyer, and you got to kind of pick and choose that situation. And so like right now, it's a buyer's market. And I made a mistake. It's not the appraiser's fault. This is another thing. And I'm saying this for all my investors. All my investors on the selling side, please listen to this. We get busy. We got lives. We doing many projects. That's the truth. But you got to handle your business. And what I mean by that is you got to cover the details. And a lot of times as investors, we got so much going on, we don't take time to cover the details. I made a serious mistake that cost me some money. I mean, I'm still gonna make out good on this project, but I'm just being open and honest here. I didn't go to the appraisal. As a seller, you need to either be at the appraisal or you need to send somebody on your behalf at the appraisal. Because when the appraiser come there, guess what he's gonna ask you most of the time? He's gonna ask you about the house, what you did this and that. Oh man, how much y'all trying to sell it for? Well, we know how much is the contract. Oh, the contract is this. If you're not there, that appraiser, he might have a tendency to either go super, super low on you more than to go high or at price. And I was in a situation where the person gave me appraisal, it was a few $1,000s off. It's, again, I'm still gonna come out good. I'm just sour about it because I didn't have to lose this money. I really didn't, because it wasn't too far off, but I didn't have to lose it. And to fight it, because of the type of loan the person has, is one of these extremely, extremely hard loans. It's not a loan that I discuss here. It's one of those 580 type loans. We already at the end, we closing next week. I don't have time to kind of fight that, because if I fight it, I'm gonna lose out. And right now we are in buyer's market. The neighborhood that I'm in is already a rough type neighborhood. I gotta make a choice of, is it good for me to fight it for a few thousand and I end up losing it? And then I still gonna have it on the market. Now it's on the market longer than what it needs to be. Now I gotta negotiate with people more than, so sometimes I gotta look at it. However, if it's a situation where I'm about to lose $40,000, $50,000, oh no, God bless you. We gonna fight this appraisal. I mean, in that scenario. And so, is it good to fight them all the time? It just depends. Can you fight them? Yes, you can force another appraisal. Either bring one up yourself to the bank, but it's ultimately going to force what they call a referee situation, or a second appraiser who's going to go out there officially to find out, what was the actual value of the property. But to avoid that, a lot of times, please make sure either your listing agent is out there, you are out there as a seller, or somebody who represents you. You can save yourself a lot of trouble, a lot of harm by making sure to have one of those three out there to kind of walk with the appraiser, tell them what they're doing. Yes, sir. But there. Uh-huh. Hold on 1 second. That way everybody can hear you. And I'm talking this way on the camera. Y'all probably excited that way they can look like they see me. So,
Sorry.
go ahead.
What is the difference between, I know you was talking earlier about the appraiser and the inspector, and I was just listening to different things that they do, but can you break down what's the kind of difference between the inspector versus the appraisal?
I'm glad you said that. Because that's another one that they use common together. Matter of fact, I was talking to an appraiser in Texas yesterday, and on my voicemail, he told me he's an appraiser. When I called him, I said, yeah, you're the appraiser, right? He's like, yeah, I'm the inspector for the property. I'm coming to do an inspection. No. You are the appraiser. But people use the words so commonly together. Home inspector objective is they come and look at the property to see what's wrong with the property, the defects and things of that nature, trying to tell you what's wrong with the plumbing, what's wrong with the AC, what's wrong with this and what's wrong with that. They're not coming to value the property, only to tell you what's wrong with the property. That makes sense? Now the appraiser's coming, he's going to see those things, but he's not doing it to come to tell you, hey, you got to, repair this, repair that. He's not coming to give you a repair. He's coming to give you a value. So each repair deducts from the value. So if my roof is messed up, they're going to deduct, and trust me, they're going to deduct. Just the messed up roof can deduct you between $5 and $15 grand, depending on your roof size. I mean, just in the Louisiana South. And so your roof messed up, all right, that's $5,000 off. We come in here, this wall wasn't painted, that's another $1,000. Get to the hot water heater, especially FHA loans and VA loans, they get real specific. You don't have, it's a gas hot water heater. You don't have it vented out. You don't have the drain pan at the bottom with the hot water heater sitting in it, and it's not draining out. Oh, right there, that's about $5,000. We're gonna take that off. And so appraisers come to give a value. Home inspectors come to tell you what's wrong. It's also really important to again, if you're buying a home for the first time, but I'm gonna be an investor one day, I want to be an investor. If you're able to, home inspection is most important, but go there when the appraiser's there if you're able to. If you're able to get there, the reason why, talk with the appraisers. They'll kind of tell you, hey, this is worth this much. Well, I'm not gonna say that from a buyer. Don't do that, because if you're a buyer, you're gonna be there with the seller, that's gonna be contradictory. Don't do that. If you're a seller or somebody selling the house and they're going with an appraiser out there, try to go talk with an appraiser. The reason being, I'll give you an example. Are we all familiar with Butcher Block? Butcher Block, like the new cabinet. All right, I'm gonna have to show you Sister Jazz afterwards. You got Butcher Block, and then you got a thing called Formica. Look like granite, but it's not, it's plastic. All right, then you got granite, you got marble, you got quartz, you got all that beautiful stuff. All right, when they go in a house, they see Formica, that's wonderful, that's good, but it doesn't really add value to your property as much. However, if you go Butcher Block, they see it as a quality finish. Now, Butcher Block is the cheapest among quartz, and it's wood, but you're almost paying the same amount of money that you're paying for Formica, just maybe a few dollars more. But that right there will increase your appraisal. Have you ever went inside of new homes, or have you ever went inside of older homes, and you see up in here, you see up top how they got this crown molding? You see how they got that chair rail? You see how they got that baseboard? Have you ever noticed you went inside the houses and you see them in the living room? You see them in the hallways, all the public spaces. They might not be in the bedrooms, but they're in the public spaces. The reason being, when you have crown molding, and trim like that, such as chair rail in the public spaces, it increases your value of your property pretty significantly. And so those are all called quality finishes. So I'm bringing this up as a sidebar for my investors, even for my buyers. How can I increase? Because some people be like, man, I'm gonna go inside the house and I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put this brand new paint here, and I'm gonna, put these new floors here. Don't get me wrong, that does add some type of value. I'm gonna add a back patio. That don't add as much value, to add more curb appeal. But then they'd be like, why my house not worth $20,000 more? Because you added to the back patio. That's not living square foot, that is just gross square foot. However, if I take time to take my money, I put some crown in the living room, crown in the bedroom, crown in the bathroom, give you a luxury feel. certain lighting in the bathroom, you know, that make it spotlight. If I put my money in the bathrooms and the kitchen, guess what? My value will go up. I put my money in the trims, the crowns, my money will go up. You know, when I say money will go up, my appraisal value go up. So it's cool to put the back patio on, but before I put the back patio on, let me put where my money can increase first, and then I can do whatever I want to do. Does that make sense? I see they got another hand, Brother Elton.
Yes, sir. Brother Caleb, I have one question. Now, that other in what appraisal, you don't have to, that would, so if I wanted to get another appraisal, I would have to pay for it myself, right? I mean, that's probably,
Pretty much,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
Because you're fighting it,
Yeah,
even if the lender is doing it, we're buyer. We'll have to think of, we have to put ourselves in a buyer position. Unless you're in a luxury market, typically if you're in a situation where, you know, people are buying homes for the first time or buying their second home, you know, to live in, their forever home, you know, sometimes it's still not a luxury situation. So they're not upper class or middle upper class. They're typically, you know, lower middle class or working class. So them extra $700 or another $800 or another $900 to fight something that's going to work in the benefit of me doesn't make any sense. Because for the buyer, the low appraisal is better for me because now I got a cheaper note. It's not good for the seller, but it's good for me. So why would I pay any money to hurt me? Does that make sense? I don't want to do anything that's going to hinder my chances of having a lower note. So we, as a seller, and this is where a lot of times we have a disconnect between agents, a disconnect between the market and the seller. A lot of times sellers do not think like a buyer. They don't think about the market, so they're not really abreast. So they think that because I seen this house over here selling, I seen this over there, I seen this over there, they think that it has to happen that way. Sometimes it causes friction between the seller and the agent, and it also causes friction between the seller and the actual potential buyer. So as a seller, we got to kind of think in our minds from their perspective as well, and it help us to maneuver a lot better when dealing with our buyers and dealing with our agents. That makes sense?
yes, sir. Okay, and last question. You never mentioned anything about termites inspection, because that's very important.
Thank you. Oh, no, extremely. You're the home inspector. I appreciate that. I totally forgot. Please forgive me, Sister Tiffany. Thank you. We need to put that in the slides. Termites. If you are in Louisiana, Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, Georgia, I don't know if they go as bad in Tennessee. However, if you're down here, you deal with something called Ferosa termites. You have regular termites and then you have Ferosa. Ferosa? Formosa?
Yeah, Formosa.
Formosa.
Yeah.
Formosa will take most of your money. Formosa are horrible. When I say they'll eat you out of a house, they will eat you out of a house. You definitely want to get a termite certificate. Typically in Louisiana, the seller will give it to you. However, I will say this. Thank you. I got to go. Thank you. Got to deal myself. Whenever you have a house, you want to get it inspected by termites. Inspected by a termite inspector. You want to do that in your due diligence period. Make sure that you do that. So have your home inspector, have a termite inspector, and have a sewer line inspector, a plumbing inspector. Those three, if you're in the South. And plumbing inspector is really for, especially if you have cast iron. And if somebody can remind me, I want to talk about home inspectors in different states, if somebody can remind me about that. But termite inspection is really important because I had a client who bought a house, and it's amazing. This house was packed with nothing but these gun cases. This guy was ex-Vietnam. He had guns everywhere, gun cases, ammunition everywhere. And you would think that this house, man, the wood on this house, it got to be excellent. We moved everything out, and some of the floors had to be repaired. When we pull up the floors, you look under there, guess what? It wasn't even on joists. It was a miracle that nothing fell through the floor because the termites had ate up all the joists under the whole entire house. So they had to redo the whole entire subfloor, had to redo all the joists. And then I've had a situation, I went to show a client a house. This was in New Orleans East. I'll never forget this. The house was beautiful. I mean, outstanding. He was gonna put an offer in it. You know, I'm happy, right? He happy, I'm happy, I'm about to get a check, everybody good. He's one of those buyers that he gonna always come through. Well, we was trying to put an offer in, but they took it off the market all of a sudden. Literally, like, I don't know, it was like 2 days later, 3 days later after he got his finance together, they took it off the market. I'm like, man, this is weird. And so tried to contact the agent never answered. Weird. So 6 months later, the same house comes on the market. I'm like, what? And I'm just like, you know what? I was at college at the time. I'm gonna just book it and go see it. I ain't even look at the pictures because sometimes it takes a while for the pictures to load. I go see the house. This house was before granite countertops, beautiful wood floors, beautiful paint. It had just been recently renovated. Went to this house, found out it had Chinese drywall. Problem number one. Problem number two, termites ate the house up. Termites ate all the low bearing beams. I'm sorry, the low part going above the studs. Ate all the kitchen, ate all the living room, ate the studs up. I'm talking about studs is gone. Went up and took out some of the ceiling rafters and also took out some of the bottom floors. So the person who renovated the house had to gut the house out completely, lost all their money. Chinese drywall it was a fake. Now, Brother Elton probably know about it way more than me as far as the detail, but it was a fake drywall that was imported around Hurricane Katrina more than anything. And so what happened was you had these people that were selling the drywall way cheaper than Home Depot, but it tends to mold, create black mold, and as well as it can be termite prone or something. It attracts termites some way. Brother Elton probably know more. I know he went to school for it specifically. But if you ever hear about Chinese drywall, right then and there,
Right.
the price about $20,000. If you ever hear black mold inside of a house, we need to talk about that too. Black mold. If you're in the South, you're gonna hear about black mold. If you ever hear about black mold, yeah. First of all, if you're gonna buy it, which I don't recommend unless you're an investor and you're trying to buy it to flip it and mitigate it, don't buy it. If you buying it to live in a home, don't buy it. Because you got to clean that properly. And to clean that properly, this was back in. Last time I had a situation where it was actually with a home buyer, this was back in the year 2015. And so in 2015, it cost $7,000 to scrub an 8x10 wall and to clean the ducts. This is the funny part. When they finish, they have to go back in there and test it again with the air testers, right? Yeah, they went back in and found out that they found black mold on the opposite side of the house now in another little small bedroom. It costs another $7,000. So it costs $15,000. I begged my buyer not to buy the house. That was the first time I tried to tell them, please don't buy the house. They got mad at me because this is their dream house. They've been looking at it the whole, time. This is when emotions can get the best of us. I'm telling them, do not buy the house. Guess what they end up doing? They still buy the house. Buy the house 3 weeks later, and they have their grandbaby in the house that's living with them. The grandbaby is 6 months old. 3 weeks later, they found black mold in another part of the house, and they had to rip out a whole entire wall. And it costs even more money. But I tried to warn against them, but this is a house that they've been looking at since forever. I grew up in this neighborhood. My mama stayed over there, and I always wanted this house, and da-da-da-da. And as an agent, they got mad at me because I'm trying to fight them saying, we can find you something better. Yeah. Well, she asked, how would you be able to tell if it's Chinese drywall or if there's black mold or something like that? I'm using that. Chinese drywall, but I'm also using black mold. You got to use a home inspector or some type of inspector. That's why it's good to have an inspector. Because sometimes when an inspector goes in there, they'll be able to see certain things, certain elements that's there. They'll be like, they're going to alert you that you might want to get this drywall checked out because of this, or you might want to get this mold checked out because it looked like it could be. And then also, if it is something that was done and the seller knew about it. Because if you want to buy Chinese drywall and you did not disclose to me that you had Chinese drywall, and I find out 6 months later, more into that, man, you're going to be in court and you got a chance of losing everything. I hope you got an LLC because you're about to lose. You're going to pay money because you knew you had a defect. And the problem about something like that with that scenario, when you're dealing with Chinese drywall or black mold and you knew you had it and you didn't properly mitigate it, that becomes a health hazard for somebody. And if somebody develops something from that, you got to pay for that. And hopefully nobody die because now we're talking about negligence. Now we're talking about a whole different demeanor. It's more than just a civil situation. Now you can find yourself in a criminal situation. So try to be hands on the table, palms up. Even as us on the seller side, do all our due diligence. Let it be known that we didn't know. Now, if I really truly didn't know, I just didn't know. That's something different. But if I did know, that's trouble on the way. Inspections around the country. I'm saying this for a reason. We here are in Louisiana. I know about Texas now because I'm in Texas. Like I found out in Texas, Louisiana, we're familiar with shoe molding. I know y'all can't see it over there, but most of us have shoe molding quarter round around the house. So basically, if you're in South Louisiana or in Louisiana in general, if you look right now somewhere down on the floor, you'll see a baseboard, and then you'll see a little small piece of wood that's sticking off from your baseboard at the very bottom where the floor, where the baseboard touches the floor. That's called shoe molding. You have quarter round, all types of base molding. That is depending on what you have. In Texas, they don't have that. They're showing you right now that bulky white part at the bottom. That's your quarter round or shoe molding or whatever whatever one you're buying. In Texas, they do not really use that, at least in the Austin area. What they use is they caulk. And the reason why they caulk, I'm thinking this make no sense. I'm from South Louisiana, right, Brother Derek? Come on, man, put some shoe molding. This is cheap. We over here, we cracking jokes like, oh man, what's wrong with them? This is cheap. Yeah, but I don't have scorpions. I don't have scorpions in South Louisiana. Scorpions get in through any bitty crack. And so what they do is they take caulking and they caulk all those corners. And when you caulk all those corners, it keeps scorpions from getting inside the house. Me being from South Louisiana, I'm going to put my shoe mold in there. Yeah, I put that shoe mold in there. I'm also going to have cousin scorpion number 1, scorpion number 2, scorpion number 3. They're going to be inside my shoes by tomorrow night. Does that make sense? I got to know my areas. And so what I'm saying is because in different states, you have to know. I kind of gave a bare bones. If I'm in Philadelphia, most of the stuff in Philadelphia, I'm using it because I know some people are on probably from Philadelphia or from New Jersey area. Sometimes you all are on. If I'm out in that area, I know I got cast iron because most of the houses, were built back in 1778, 1820, in the industrial area and all that good stuff, 1825. So cast iron is a big thing there, just like in Louisiana. So I'm looking through those sewer lines. I'm also looking at, but termites, you might not have termites way up north. You don't have termites down here, but I'm gonna have some type of rodent. I might have rats, might be my problem. And everybody wants a general inspection, as far as checking the walls, checking this, general home inspection. You want at least a home inspector, but I have to know my area. If I was in Philadelphia, boiler systems might be a problem. We don't have boilers here and we don't have basement issues here. So in Louisiana, that's not something I would really inspect. We don't have no really boiler system. We have tankless heaters, but we don't have a boiler system that heats us up in the winter. What do we have? We got an AC that's both central and air. However, they don't have to worry about an AC that much in the Northeast, but down here, AC is important. Unless you want to be sweating, it is very important. But, if I'm in California, on the West Coast, when I'm looking at insurance and I'm looking at the structure itself, I'm looking at that how far that slab comes off of that. If I'm on a hill, I'm looking how far that slab comes off that hill, because if an earthquake comes and I don't have the proper tensions, I don't have the proper posts, guess what I'm for? I'm for a whole mudslide. I'm for a whole landslide. You get what I'm saying? I have to know my area where I'm at, the demographics, to get the proper inspections. You have a bare bones. You always want a home inspection. You probably want some type of rodent or some type of pest, nest. I'm using that like the termite situation. And you're going to always want, if you have cast iron, you're going to always want some type of sewer inspection wherever you are in the country. However, I need to know the specifics of where I'm at in my country. What affects me where I'm at? Because I might take that shoe molding off of the baseboard. Might take that caulk off to the baseboard and put shoe mold in there, and I find myself in the situation. Or I might be on a hill and we got earthquakes, and now I find myself in a situation where they got mudslides all the time. But I could have avoided a lot of things if I had the proper home inspections and do the proper research to know what is, I guess, a nuisance or a problem in my demographics. So when it comes to home inspection, yes, you want to do a general inspection. Yes, you might want to look for something like termites or some type of nuisance type animal, whatever that might eat at the house, and some type of sewer line if it's cast iron. But also I want to do inspections that are kind of keen to my area. And most of the time, your real estate agents, they will know, or other investors will know in that area what you need to watch out for. I mean, I don't know if I was doing something in Phoenix, I might need to watch out for coyotes. Coyotes are a big thing out there. You know, how do I keep coyotes out? In Louisiana, I ain't got no coyotes. I got alligators. Whole different ballgame. So, and water moccasins. We got water moccasins. So, with that being said, is there any other questions? You have? Oh yeah, it's 2:00. We got 10 minutes. I got 10. I told you I'd give y'all 2:10. So if you have any more, feel free to ask. If not, you know, I'm trying to think of anything else I might have missed, but mainly this one right here is about the home buying process. The next one that we'll try to do more about flipping and renting. And basically, now we get into a situation where, all right, how do we use that equity, the equity that we have, or how do we use that seed coin that we have to purchase other properties? And then how, when I go to the bank, you know, when I'm trying to get a budget to do the property, how do I work that budget? Because they may give you a budget for $50,000 to renovate the house. That's wonderful. What they don't tell you is this: we won't lend you all the money until you finish the project. So I may have $50,000, but I might not be able to get no more than 40 grand because they're going to keep a retainage of 20%, sometimes 25% until the project is finished. So if you are, like some investors have been, you know, we barely making it. We out here putting everything we got into this project and trying to make it work. And so you get to the point like, oh, I still got $10,000 that I can draw from the account. No, you don't. You got to come up with that $10,000 yourself. And so if I've already spent every last dollar and I'm thinking that I have this, you find yourself in a hard situation. And it's good to know that. It's good to know that because if not, it can make things a little stressful when you get to the end of a project because you're in construction. Anytime we decide to become a real estate investor, know this: you have now just walked into construction management. I don't care who you are. You will be a general contractor by the end of the day. If you decide to stick with this, whether you have a license or not, you will be a GC because you have to learn project management, whether or not you lend it out to another GM to tell, okay, this GM, but you still got to watch that GM because we're going to learn this. Everybody in construction is not truthful. Big surprise. Every GM is not going, you know what he's trying to do? I'm trying to cut corners because if I cut corners, I get more money in my pocket. I'm not trying to cut corners because if you cut corners, I got to pay for another repair. Or whenever they do a home inspection, I found out that you didn't cut corners. Instead of putting them every 16 or 18 inches with the studs, you put it every 24. Now I got to come back and redo this whole entire wall. You get what I'm saying? And I got to hire you to come back and do the wall. You get double the money. You get what I'm saying? So it's most important to know those things. So the next one we'll talk about will be about flipping to rent, flipping to sell, the process, working with the bank, how to work with that budget, how to work with your contractors, if I might have to be a contractor or things of that nature. We'll talk about those items. That will be on the next one. And I don't know, we're getting into Airbnb, so at some point, hopefully I'll be able to talk about those if that works out. But we'll definitely talk about long-term rentals and keep it kind of moving from there. Or if you're doing a big project, like if I decide to buy 10-plex, how do I manage those type of projects? We'll try to get into those things if possible. We have some construction management people on here in person, on the line, home inspectors. We have other investors. Everyone's feel free to chime in. We have, seasoned investors, which I call those who've been doing it for a while. You have mid-season and you have beginners, but we can all add and all take away. So even if you're not investing just yet, it's still good to talk among investors or hear how they talk and understand the lingo. But with that being said, they got one more. What you got, sister? Oh, they got one more slide? What slide they got? Oh, the survey. Oh, wow. I got such a great tech team. Please, by all means, let me know how bad I did or how good I did. I'm just playing. If you all want to scan this, I can't get the name. QR code. I've been thinking about real estate. I'm about to say apartment. But go ahead and scan this QR code. And if you can kind of fill out this survey. The link is also in the chat. Tiffany is telling me. Feel free to give comments, feedback. Also, haven't forgot about, certain subjects certain people want to talk about, whether it's in regards to investing. If I'm in a different country and I want to invest in to the States, how do I do that? Property management, things of that nature. We're still going to get to those topics. We're just trying to take it step by step and catching up people on what we were doing and where we were headed. But if you have some type of subject that you want to talk about, It should be in the survey where you can put that in there, and we'll definitely try to get to it as soon as we're able and possible. But definitely give us your feedback. If you could take some time out, we would greatly appreciate it. But with that being said, appreciate you both in person and on Zoom. Love you much. Again, you know, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to give me a call, shoot me a text, or whatever the case may be. Look forward to helping you all to be the best that you can be, not only in Christ, but just be the best that you can be just in life. You know, it's no sense of us having to work all our lives. I'm not a person who believes in retirement, but I believe in buying my freedom. And so if I'm free, I'm retired. I'm retired from having to do this 9 to 5 every day. And so when can I buy my freedom? Do I have to be 55, 65, 45, or whatever to buy my freedom? No, I can buy my freedom even when I'm in my 30s. I can buy my freedom. I can at least be contingently free. I might not be all the way free. I'm contingent as long as I keep paying these bills and, you know, money, cash flow coming in, but you can also get to a point where you can actually be completely free. And so the whole objective is let every man buy their freedom so you can do what you really want, have that stress-free life and live a healthy, wealthy life. So, you know, that way your psyche can prosper, your health can prosper, and your financial account can prosper. So God bless, appreciate you much, love you all.